This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to a podcast of Rare Antiquities. Today we are going to continue our review of Star Trek Picard Season 1, and we're going to combine our review in today's show of Episode 7 and Episode 8. Episode 7 called Nepenthe and Episode 8 Broken Pieces. This is Harry, and welcome back, Geoff. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
Well, I am okay. You know, we're living in a world today where the coronavirus is now, spreading throughout the globe. We are here in Canada. Stock markets crash for a variety of reasons, because oil prices have dropped from the Saudis and in conjunction with coronavirus stuff and, Trump and other world leaders are starting to say, let's shut this down and shut that down. And it's driving the markets crazy. And there's a lot of fear and panic going around even here in Canada. And I thought I'd get your take on your experience so far before we really start into the episodes here. I thought we'd just kind of talk about this high level. What's going on with you, and what's your observations here?
It's it's pretty wild. I mean, I spent the last week, it was still just kind of reading about it in the news. It wasn't really a big deal here locally where we live. There aren't many cases in the vicinity, and as far as if we record this, there hasn't been any confirmed cases of community spread in our area. So, it was one of those things that was on the news. Seeing the stock market crash, it wasn't a huge surprise to me. I mean, I work very closely in that business, so I wasn't surprised that I've worked through this kind of thing before, but I'm always disappointed in people that they don't understand how you're supposed to treat the stock market. So it's unfortunate, because it has real world repercussions for, people who live and work out there. And unfortunately, so it's a real shame. And then things started to kind of crystallize a little bit over the last couple of days of last week, Thursday, Friday. We went grocery shopping on Friday, and there were lines all the way up and down all of the aisles of the grocery store. People weren't freaking out or panicking. It still looked like kind of pretty regular grocery shopping, but people were making sure they got what they needed to get. And that's kind of when it started to look to me like, okay, well, there's definitely, if not panic in the local area, some unease setting in.
I would say more unease. I'm not panicked, but yeah, it's getting to a point where, like say, for example, we are not at risk, we're less than mid-age, essentially, I guess, but we're approaching there, but we have parents. So if you end up being a carrier, what does that mean for your parents? Potentially, what does it mean for your kids, even though I'm hearing kids aren't drastically impacted from this thing. But it can be a scary time. It just shows the state of humanity, how quickly things can change. Like, we're not Walking Dead apocalyptic level yet, but I mean, as you said, my wife was pretty shooken when she went to get groceries and all the aisles were bare, and she was able to bring some stuff home, but now we have to do the social distancing and all of these things. Luckily, it will not impact this podcast unless I croak.
Don't worry, Harry. I vowed to move on, to carry on the dream without you if something happens. So don't you worry.
Okay. I can rest in peace then.
The dream will survive.
Yeah, but I just thought it's interesting, like we see kind of these things in movies, and, Star Trek's had its fair share of these kind of scares and science and how do you treat it medically, and, they talk about various facets of viruses and diseases or addiction and these kind of things that happen. And it's just kind of fascinating how things have, translated into real life here. So I thought I'd start off the podcast with that. I was curious to get your thoughts, but let's now talk about the two episodes that we are here for. Episode 7, Nepenthe, and Episode 8. So I thought we'll just, instead of talking about them both together, let's just split them and try and do them quickly. So Episode 7, Nepenthe, we saw Picard go through that portal, and he winds up, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been now a couple weeks since I've seen the episode, that is the planet, is Nepenthe, right?
I believe that is correct, yes.
That's right. So he arrives on Nepenthe, and he gets he's with Soji. They are in a very similar vein to him going back to his vineyard homestead in that episode of Family with his brother and his nephew. He kind of gets now Riker's son, who kind of sees him from afar, questions him like he's playing kind of like this make-believe thing, done like medieval thing or whatever he's doing, and then he brings him to... He obviously knows who Picard is, and I think Picard knows who he is. Or she is. Sorry, it's a she.
I was just like, that's right. Daughter, right?
That's a daughter. Okay. That's a daughter. Sorry, it is a daughter. And she brings him back to the Riker homestead there, and we finally get to see Riker and Troy. And this is kind of a bit more of a, I wouldn't say character study. It's a nice little break from some of the action that's going on. And we get to not only revisit these old characters with Riker and Troy, but I think there's some nice stuff here going on with Soji and Riker's daughter. Now, I can't remember her name. And then we have, we'll talk about the stuff that's happening on the Borg cube separately. So let's talk about what I think we really want to talk about are these scenes here and seeing Riker and Troy again and Picard interacting with his old crewmates. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a real pleasure to see Picard interact with these old characters. I'm pretty sure Frakes hasn't acted in anything in many, many years. Marina Sirtis as well, I don't think gets a whole lot of work these days in front of the screen. So I was actually really impressed with how well they seemed to fall back into their characters. Like it wasn't perfect, but I thought they did a really good job for people who don't do. I mean, I know Frakes works a lot in TV. He's a very, very prolific television director, lots of different series. So he's around it. I don't know how much Marina Sirtis is around it. So and she actually had a lot to do. So it was nice to see. So yeah, it was great, and I think that one of maybe on the flip side, part of what I don't know, I don't want to be too negative, but part of what it exposed about the series is, TNG was such the ensemble was so important that, and I think one of the things you and I have been grappling with this show is that Patrick Stewart as Picard, it's a very different Picard. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which, for story reasons that do make sense. But as soon as I saw him on screen with these legacy characters, I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's why some things feel off, is because he's playing off of all of these different people on this show. And so that ensemble it's a different ensemble. It's still an ensemble in a sense, but it's different. So seeing him back with these other characters, I'm like, okay, this feels emotionally correct to me now. At least in those scenes. So I thought it was really nice to see them together.
Yeah, I agree. The first thing I want to say is shields up from Riker. That was, I did a spit take on that one. That was fucking hilarious. When he there's a funny thing. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. Like a long time ago when TNG was really popular and they were branching out into First Contact. I think it was right around the time of First Contact. They released a bunch of TNG toys in Toys R Us or wherever. I remember one time I was looking at one of the Riker figures, and each one has a kind of catchphrase. Like Picard would have, T, Earl Grey hot. Q, it would be like, Mon Capitaine, or, all these kind of things. And Riker, it was just, shields up, fire, shields up again.
That's great.
And he always did that, right? That was great. It's like the knee-jerk Riker reactions, and I thought that was fucking fantastic. Even though it was a bit silly, like when you kind of think about it. Or you're being chased by Romulans, shields up! And I'm in the house. Right. It's like, at first I thought he was just joking. And it was like, okay, really, he has equipped this house with shields. So.
He's a prepper. That's what he is. He's the 25th century Star Trek version of a doomsday prepper. He's got the shields and the cloaking detection and all of that stuff all set up just in case of the, galactic apocalypse.
That's right. But going back to these characters, I want to give a complete shout out to Marina Sirtis, especially here. I thought she was fucking fantastic. And the acting department here, like she was even better here than she was in most of TNG.
I thought she was actually gave her something to do. Yeah.
And I do want to shout out here, and I don't know if this played a part of her performance. I do believe her real life husband died shortly after filming this.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if he had an illness oncoming or if it was sudden. I don't know those details. that life experience is not just maybe about her husband, which is unfortunate and, sorry to hear about that. But she seemed like some life experiences grounded some of her acting here. And she was able to pull into, some of that trauma. Like there was some silent moments there where, because Picard knows they have a son who died earlier, and I think the name was Thaddeus was the son.
That's right.
Weird name, but that's okay. I liked some of those scenes. It was better left unsaid. Like Picard was kind of looking at her saying, and she was saying, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. And it's like, you know what I mean? I these were brilliant scenes. And the same thing with Riker here. Frakes did a great job. He fit right back into that role. And I want to say something here. It's like, this to me, you were talking about what this show exposed you to. Like we've kind of hinted at this, like why come back if you're just going to have this new crew and you're going to piecemeal in some of your old crew, and now we're just going to want to see the old crew back together. Now, with Picard and Riker and Troy together again here, this to me exposed that the show, and it's maybe an unfair judgment and comparison, but the show, it's Picard's new crew, I don't feel a connection there like I do with these characters. And I think that's exposing a problem with the show. And it's unfair because like in season 1, you would say in season 1 of TNG, well, it's like the same thing of every show. You got to give these characters time to gel and bond. But when you think about how this show has kind of approached things, like this was a one-off series. I know they have a season 2. It was a one-off season. I don't think they were saying they were planning for 7 seasons here.
No.
So when you're going down this route of saying, I'm going to have my own crew, but now I'm going to sprinkle in the old crew. Now I just want to see them. It's kind of like what happened with Star Wars, right? Yeah. It's like the minute I saw Harrison Ford, Luke, and Carrie Fisher again, I mean, whoever else was the part of the old crew, I just care about them. And it takes away from the new crew and these new characters. And I felt the same thing here. So I'm wondering if it was a mistake not to just do I don't want to call it a reunion show, but maybe it might have been better to have these characters all interact together again. I'm not saying they got to be on the Enterprise, but I just felt that after watching this episode, I just felt that now this is a mistake, because now this was awesome, and I now go back to Picard interacting with the other crew. I don't think that the regular crew, the Picard's new crew here, is very strong in the acting department, and I think the show is suffering from it. And that's just, I don't know, what do you think about that? Is it unfair, or is it just, because it's season 1 and it is what it is, and we don't expect these characters to really gel, but.
No, it's, I don't think it's unfair, but it's also not, like, it's not inaccurate. Like, cause I'm with you, right? I agree. It's not fair in the sense that, we're on episode 8 of a 10 episode season of a show that's going to have 2 seasons, maybe 3, because that's kind of what they talked about when they started. They're like, we've got enough material maybe for 3 seasons if we decide to do it. So is it it's not like nobody's at fault, but it's part of the overall, like the structure itself. Then it starts to show its, I guess we could say, shortcoming. Like, we've never had a Star Trek show like this, where the idea was to focus on one single person and that person's quest. Like Discovery kind of started that way in a sense, but it sort of built out its ensemble over the course of its 2 seasons. Whereas this, it's just not going to have that time. So I don't know what the word is. Is it unfair? Is it something else? I don't know. But you're right. As soon as I see him hanging with when I see him hanging with Riker and Troy, I'm like, I want more. I want more of this. Where's Geordi? Where's Worf? Where's Data? Well, we know where Data is. It's dead, but but that's the thing. Like, it was almost a smarter idea when they had 7 of 9 the couple episodes earlier, because he had never interacted with 7 of 9 before on screen. So, but it was still a nice callback to that era of Trek, right? On that same time period, but without giving us that longing of seeing or hearing Riker say shields up and all this stuff. Yeah. So it's difficult. I'm of 2 minds of it, I guess, and I'm having trouble reconciling it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble too.
I will say this, though. While we're on that topic. Regardless of all of that, what it does do is it does help clean my palate of Star Trek Nemesis, and I will be grateful for that.
This series here is a direct continuation, even though it's not a timeline direct like the next day, but this is a continuation of Nemesis and the events that have unfolded, not just because of Data, but the Romulans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
that's
it's nice that that's not the final chapter in these characters' story.
Yeah. I mean, Nemesis.
Nemesis. That was a real.
Nemesis is bad. It's not absolutely terrible, but it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are elements I really enjoy in Nemesis, but
yeah, there is a couple here and there, but when it's the final story, it hurts, like that was the final one. Like Star Trek V is a bad movie. I enjoy the hell out of it, but I think that part of what makes it easier to remember Star Trek V fondly is that wasn't the send-off.
Mm-hmm.
If that had been the final Star Trek movie,
then we'd be in trouble. Yeah,
I'd be kind of pissed off,
Mm-hmm.
So this is nice.
So then I have a question for you. If Nemesis was, and it is, genuinely viewed as not being a good send-off, then that strengthens my position on that everyone should have been here.
I guess I agree with that. Like it would have been nice to actually have a reunion show. I understand like why they were not able to. Well, shit, they probably could have done it.
No, to me, man, this is Patrick Stewart's doing. He was not interested in a
reunion show.
No,
he wasn't.
And I think everyone else was. He was saying, no, I'm not doing this. I've heard multiple interviews and read multiple articles that it was not his interest. He was okay with just kind of, spending time with maybe Riker for 10 minutes, but he didn't want these characters tagging along. So this is all Patrick Stewart's doing. And again, I'm wondering if he has some hubris and he has some ego here.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
And I wanted my show. I don't want everyone tagging along for the ride with me. I don't want to share the screen. And the funny thing is here.
But he is sharing the screen. Though.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I want to get to this at the end. So please, I'm going to mention it here. Please remind me. Sometimes we mention something, we'll talk about it, and then we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of this episode, I want to talk about, I feel Picard's not even the star of his own show. Like he is and he isn't. I don't know if you agree with that, but let's talk about that afterwards. Now let's talk about the meat of the story here. So Riker and Troy are there just to give Picard a chance to have a breather while he's escaping Narek and the Romulans. So he's here. We see Riker and Troy. They are there because their daughter has some illness that there's some, I don't know, regenerative properties about this planet that she has to stay here.
No, it was the son who had the illness.
That's the son who had the illness. Oh, that's right.
And
then
that's
the daughter,
why they came here.
That's why they came here. And the daughter, because she developed her own world out of this tragedy of losing her brother, that she wanted to stay on this planet. And the parents didn't want to pull her away off this planet after the fact.
Yeah, they didn't really seem to have any interest in going back to Starfleet.
Mm-hmm. But I do want to mention one thing. So now the son died, and I found this a bit contrived, and again, something with the writing. So everything has to relate back to the synthetic issue.
Yeah.
Now, the son died, he would have survived if synths were allowed to live and not banned. Because something to do with his body could be saved based on some I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah.
What is the thing? The positronic?
It was some bullshit. So they had to culture some bacteria or whatever had to be cultured inside of a positronic matrix. And that was the treatment for that disease. But that treatment ceased to exist when synthetics were out. That's correct. Yeah. And that was some extraordinary tech-to-tech bullshit.
Oh
right
my
there.
God.
It's fucking retarded.
And
pardon my language.
No,
really stupid.
It is fucking retarded. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? We're doing this? You want to give him a tragic angle? Go ahead. But why are you linking it? Everything has to be related. It's we keep talking about it, the convenience currency.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It falsely raised the stakes of this whole synthetic issue.
That's right.
And it's
that's
like,
right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it wasn't necessary to raise the stakes of this issue.
Yeah.
Because we all have the same fondness for Data. Because if you don't have this fondness for Data, you probably don't watch this TV show.
No.
You watch this show because you love TNG, and if you love TNG, you love Data. So they don't need to be doing stuff like that. That's just cheap and shoddy. It was unnecessary. I guess, it was unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So I guess, how about Soji then? So we have Soji and the daughter, and I think the daughter was there. I really liked this actor or child actor who was playing the daughter. I thought she was fucking fantastic.
Yeah. I really liked her. Yeah.
Yeah, she was really good, and I loved her interactions with her parents, Riker and Troy, as well as Picard, but especially Soji. Because Soji is just being revealed. We have that reveal here right off the bat. She gives away because she mentions about Data. in their walk back to the Riker homestead there, that she tells Soji, oh, you must be an android then. And Picard hadn't told her that yet.
Right.
So then Soji starts to have that bit of that breakdown. Not a real physical breakdown, but really questioning everything and is kind of getting into a depressive state and being a little angsty and all that stuff. And I thought the daughter brings her around their interactions. She's talking about Data. She's talking about what Picard can do for her. He can be that father figure that you need, or that, light that can guide you in the right direction. And I liked all of these scenes. And I think that's what Picard has been missing. I'm going to say one thing. The way this show is edited is a fucking nightmare. I feel like people who are on drugs or who have ADHD or a combo of both are cutting and making this show, because the show doesn't linger on character moments like this too long. It feels like it's 10 seconds and you're out. 10 seconds, next scene, and we're cutting back and forth between two different, the A and B storyline. But in this episode, I felt that they lingered a little bit more on some of these character moments here. Yeah. And I thought that was one of the strengths of this episode, is the way they allowed the scenes to breathe. And especially for Soji and Troy too. So that was a strength in this episode. What'd you think? I thought it was great.
No, I mean, I agree that, you kind of said it before as sort of a break from the action. This is a more Trek-like episode. Like, it's a talkie, it's people talking. And that's where Star Trek, strangely enough, has always been at its strongest, when people are just kind of talking it out. So great. I love the daughter as well. Kestra was her name.
Oh, and that's right. And that Kestra is the Troy's dead sister.
That's right.
I didn't know. That's right.
So neat callback there. I think Thaddeus is a callback to something as well, but I'm not sure. Well, I didn't have time to research it, but it rang a bell in there. So we'll have to do our research, come back on that one. But all Trek fans already know what it's called back to, and we're lazy. We don't do our homework like good Trek fans. But I agree. I mean, it was nice to finally see Soji have something to do other than be smitten by this Romulan dreamboat on the Borg cube.
Yes.
So they were really doing her a disservice. Yeah, a lot more agency. She was able to come out of her shell, and now I'm not dreading every time she's on screen like I was for the first 7, or I guess first 6 episodes. So great. Yeah. And she fit right in. Her interplay with Kestra was great. They had some chemistry, those two. Cause it was she was kind of like a big sister, like they're kind of hanging out in the bunk beds there and traipsing around the woods, as the episode wore on. It was really nice. It was really sweet. I thought it was a nice touch.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was great. So let's now move on to the B storyline going on here, which is we're back on the Borg cube, and I'm mixed on what's going on here. So if from the previous episode, as Picard and Soji went through the portal on the Borg cube, Q and Elnor, sorry.
Elnor, yeah, no, Elrond. Elrond the L. Elnor.
Elnor stays behind for whatever reason, and now he's just kind of trying to avoid all the Romulan soldiers who are stationed on the ship there. And eventually the Romulan lady, I cannot remember her name.
Oh, the evil sister?
Evil sister. Her
name is Rizzo.
Rizzo?
Rizzo.
Okay, if it's Rizzo.
Yeah.
So she tracks them down, and they have a good fight, Elnor is able to do some fancy moves to dispatch some of these soldiers. It's an okay, small little action sequence. Doesn't mean much to me. The unfortunate casualty here is Hugh.
I know!
And he is just unceremoniously killed. Quickly. And the way it's done too, it's so poorly shot. He's just kind of sitting there shocked, kneeling, crouching to the side, and she throws the knife into his neck. I like the move from Rizzo, that she was able to kind of quickly do these things, and Elnor was trying to throw it back, and she transported out of there before it could hit her. That's a nice little shot. I think the whole action set piece, though, was kind of underwhelming. And as a result, Hugh is gone too quickly, and I was hoping he would have more presence on this show. And it doesn't necessarily mean he has to tag along and be part of the crew, but I just feel like they brought him back for almost nothing. And it's too bad.
I'm mixed on it. I mean, cause I feel like that does legitimately raise the stakes, as opposed to the fake raising of the stakes with, that whole positronic matrix cure for Thaddeus. And if you think about it, he was on this show more than he was on TNG. Mm-hmm. So, but I he was good. He was so good. He was much better than I was expecting him to be. Cause, I knew he was going to be on the show months ago before the show aired, when they announced it. So I don't know, I expected him to be in like one episode as who knows what, and to actually have him, he was on 3 episodes. He was a character. He had agency. He did stuff. He had good performance. He interacted with Picard. It was really nice to see him. And I think giving him, and the thing is actors also love a good death scene.
That's right. But they do, but this was not a good death scene.
Well, the actual knife to the neck, but he got a good final couple lines. Like that's what they want, is the death speech is what these actors, they live for. And I thought he had a good final line there. I thought it was really sweet, and I thought he played it really, really well. It was too bad that it was with this character that he had just met, but
yeah, he was kind of alone. So then I don't like that, right? So
yeah, what are you
essentially,
gonna do?
What are you going to do? But
yeah,
but you know what? We can pause on just that notion because they're bringing back a character right away into the next episode.
Yeah,
and I felt if you were going to have Hugh do a sacrifice, I think it could have been done in the next episode.
Yeah, so you could have been with Seven.
Yeah, with Seven. And I think that would have meant more. Even though they've never interacted, it's Borg instead of this, Lord of the Rings guy sitting here. So.
Yeah, totally. No, I agree. That would have been a lot more like emotionally satisfying. I kind of hate to keep dumping on Elrond or Space Tolkien, whatever, because I like him. Like he makes me laugh.
He just makes me laugh because he feels so out of place.
Well, he does feel so out of place. And that's not the actor's fault. I actually think the actor's doing a good job with the character that they've given him. It's just such a silly thing. Like it's totally unnecessary. It's like, what else do we need? Space elf, Romulan. Yeah, let's throw a Romulan in there with a samurai sword. It's gonna be fucking dope. And it's like, okay, I mean, it's pretty silly. But the actor's like, I'm game, baby. Bring it on. I'll do it. I'm gonna give it 100%. And he does. And I love his earnestness.
He does have earnestness. Yeah, he does have some earnestness. Yeah.
Totally fucking useless, but, I love his earnestness. He's kind of, he's kind of like the Wesley Crusher of Star Trek.
Oh,
like,
man,
it's like, why is this child here flying a spaceship? Well, he's trying really hard, guys. Okay, fine. No problem. So,
That's great.
He'll grow into it.
That's fantastic. Okay, so after Hugh dies and Rizzo escapes, Elnor's still trapped there, but I believe Picard gave Elnor the Phineas Ranger tracker or activation key or whatever you want to fucking call it, and he activates it to get help to get off that ship. That's the end of the episode, essentially. And we, obviously Picard and Soji leave the Riker homestead there as they get picked up by Rizzo.
No.
Oh, no, Rios.
Rios.
I am struggling with these fucking names, man.
Rios is probably the easiest name.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's the easiest name. So he get his crew finally picks him up. And that's really the end of the episode, and it's sad to see Riker and Troy leave, but at least they have somewhat of a happy ending in a sense. They're a stable family, even though they had a tragedy, and they seem to be doing well for themselves, and it's good. And Riker's still on reserve duty, and that would have been fucking awesome. Riker, we need you back. So it's like, all right, just give me.
We need him flying in on that on the Enterprise E with that sweet super laser, like in All Good Things.
Yes. That would be fucking awesome with the white beard and everything he's got now.
Yeah, white beard and everything. Yeah, it'd be great. Actually, I thought he looked pretty good too. I like Old Man Riker. I thought he looked good.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me of Old Man Luke, except except this one had Riker has a bit more optimism than grouchy Luke. So
better lines too.
Better lines, better everything,
and better food too.
Better food, yeah, better everything.
Like he wasn't drinking green milk out of an alien's tit. I mean, I know he burned a pizza, but I'll take a burned pizza over green alien tit milk any day of the week.
That's right. All right, so Geoff, that does the episode 7, wraps it up. Nepenthe.
Well, now hold on.
Okay.
We didn't. It leads directly into the next one, but we didn't talk about Dr. What's Her Nuts poisoning herself deliberately.
Yeah, I mean, good for her, but I'm struggling to really care for this character.
Yeah, no, she's a reckoning I hope is coming for her because I don't, and I kind of like Alison Pill in some things, she's fine, but, she still feels out of place on this show. But But yeah, because at the end there, because they were getting tracked through the, like, so we see that she was given a pill by Admiral or Commodore O.
That's right.
In, way back, that then they're tracking her they're tracking her, and they're still able to track them through space there.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where we do reveal in this episode, wasn't it, that she had the mind meld with Commodore O?
Yeah, and then she saw the vision.
Yeah, the vision of presumably synthetic life destroying all regular life, I guess. And that was how she was convinced to kill Maddox, because she had those images and those emotions implanted directly into her brain. So. Yeah,
and I was going to bring it up at the beginning of next episode, because we start with this vision.
Let's roll. Let's just roll. Yeah.
Well, so we can talk about that. You want to talk about it now?
Yeah. Let's just go into the next episode then, because it directly leads into it.
Okay. So. Well, let's just quick thoughts. What did you think of this episode, just to wrap it up?
It was definitely my favorite episode of the bunch so far. It was, like every episode, there were still some issues with it, but there was such good stuff with Riker and Troy and Picard all together, and they nailed their daughter. Soji finally has something to do. The show really did well with the daughter. Jesus Christ, Harry.
Well, anyways, it's all good.
So they did a hell of a job with those character moments. It was what we've been kind of waiting for 7 episodes, and they got it. It was awesome to see them. And anything else? We're picking nits other than that, I think, right? So.
Yes. No, I agree. I really enjoyed this. I think this is my favorite with the pilot. I think those two are my favorite of the bunch so far. So it was an improvement. So let's move on to episode 8, Broken Pieces. So we open up directly again, back in the past. Every episode is back in the past. We have to start with, we see the Dr. Hodge or Jacques Vache.
I think it's the Jot. Is it the Jot? Jot Vache.
Jot Vache. So this is the Romulan secret cult society that is worried about synthetics, and they're showing kind of its, I wouldn't say formation, but I guess it's agents trying to understand what their mission is. Mm-hmm. They are on some weird planet around some weird shit, very cultish, dressed in robes. And we even see that Romulan woman who was assimilated by the Borg, called Soji the Destroyer. She's here as well, along with Commodore O. I guess I'm assuming before she joined Starfleet or whatnot, doesn't matter. So they all hold hands around this thing, and she warns everybody that, this is going to be something that could drive you mad. You may not survive this vision, but if you do, you will know what it is and what your purpose is, and something along those lines. So people see this vision, and it's a vision of the past. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It was of the past of synthetics destroying what could be the known galaxies or universe. And it's all apocalyptic, worlds blowing up, cities blowing up. So there's wars, and you see flashes of just different synthetics, and you see Data briefly there and part of that, and maybe Soji as well, and all of that stuff. And then once the vision is complete, some of the Romulans go mad. Start beating themselves. One shoots themselves in the head, and those who survive are now stronger and now are agents of protecting and trying to make sure synths don't exist, and that's their mission. I have 2 questions for you, Geoff. Was this satisfying for you? 1, the way this is revealed and what the mission is, and 2, the second question is, this is a vision, correct me if I'm wrong, is of the past. So, even though life repeats itself, like we can talk about cycles and life is cyclical and we don't learn our lessons of human history and blah, blah, blah and all that stuff. But this is what I was afraid for, is that it wasn't something to do with, there's no agency here. It's just feels like here's Nostradamus's guess, the world's going to end. So let's all believe it's going to happen. Let's not use our brains.
Yeah.
And I just didn't,
right.
I didn't like that. I thought that was kind of stupid.
I don't know. Well, okay, so how I understood it is that society or that civilization was destroyed by synthetic life, so they place this warning beacon, like this is what happens inevitably when synthetic life is allowed to evolve, like unchecked. So it happened to us. What's not a Nostradamus thing. It's this actually happened to us.
Hundreds and thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Don't let it happen to you, right? So I guess it is like, try to learn the lesson of history. Don't allow this type of life to come forward because it will naturally want to destroy you. I believe that's what they're trying to tell us. How they portrayed it. Okay, so they're like, okay, this could drive you mad. And, we see that one Romulan shoot herself in the head and the others are bashing their faces in with rocks. So had a very like horror movie feel to it. And that's okay. But because the images that we see aren't that shocking, it's hard for me to kind of extrapolate how much worse it was to have that implanted directly into their brains so that they would try to kill themselves or go crazy, So there was a bit of an incongruity there. It's a leap for me to be like, okay, why does that drive you crazy to know that these things would destroy all of like all organic life? Like, why does that drive you insane? I don't understand why that drives you insane. Like, so how much worse were the images? I can't make that leap. So I thought the scene was fine. So was it satisfying? Not really. And I was also disappointed because I was hoping that there was something more at play here.
Yes.
And there's not. It's exactly what it's been since this first episode. They really hate synthetics.
Yeah. And that's it.
And
we talked about it before in one of our previous episodes. We're hoping this is not just going to be the simple Terminator kind of thing. We're afraid about AI and synthetics and here you go. And not about AI, but in this case, it's synthetics. Terminator, it's about AI taking over. And again, the leap here is that, in the future, in this show, Star Trek universe, tech is so advanced that AI is there, machines are there, self-operating machines are there. There are various forms of robotics and androids that have been present in many incarnations of Trek up to this point, and now all of a sudden it's an issue.
Yeah, it's almost like the people who make the show, they don't understand how AI works. They don't know anything about AI.
No.
No. It's like, well, yeah, I agree.
I mean, the most dangerous AI that you've seen so far is the Borg, technically, and Lore. Yeah. And that's really, it's a race of something, and then Lore. And what would have been more interesting in this case is if they were kind of making a leap between synthetics and the Borg, and they still may do that. I'm not sure. I don't see how, but I think if the show was more about that and not just simply Data. See, what they've done here is for Picard to kind of get back into the fold of things. The tragedy of Data saving his life and Data's sacrifice has impacted Picard so much that they made it only about that.
Yeah.
And I think that was a mistake. And I think that if Data was related in part to some of this stuff, I think that would have been more interesting instead of the direct correlation. It's because of Noonien Soon's future work, whether Maddox did this or Soon did that. And there's some of Data's tech is somewhere in something else. And I don't know, man. It just feels their instincts of this story is wrong. And it's not enough here.
Yeah. I think they kind of worked backwards with this story. And that's not necessarily a bad way to try to tell a story, but I think that what they did was, like, they started at the end. Okay, we know we want to get Picard back to do a show. What would get him back? Like, what would get that character back? What state do we want him to be in? Okay, well, he would have left Starfleet. What would have caused him to leave? Like, they kind of started it. I feel like they started maybe like 3/4 of the way through and then sort of built it out from there. But in so doing, like, they made leaps, not leaps necessarily, but they made steps backwards, but they didn't know how. When you're stepping backwards, you don't know how far back to step to make it kind of logical when you're going to play it the other way, right? And they're like, okay, well, what would have caused Picard to be in this state? And then they had to dream up a thing that would have done that. Like, Picard's out of Starfleet. What would have caused him to leave Starfleet? And they got to dream up a thing. Okay, that caused him to leave Starfleet. And then what led up to that? And so on, right? And how does that play in? So as opposed to starting at the start and then kind of working through with the character, what decision would he make during this event? So I think that is a big piece of why the show sometimes feels like it makes these leaps in logic sometimes, or the cause and effect don't quite seem to line up, is because I feel like they must have worked in the wrong direction. That's my impression of this.
And I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it's just, I guess we can just sum up that this whole MacGuffin's a bit disappointing, if that's all there is to it, the reason behind it. But let's move on. We got, again, two kind of storylines going on here. We got Picard on the ship with Soji, and now they're going to deal with Alison Pill's Agnes's character when she wakes up, because the tracker was dislodged from that, what she did there. So they're no longer apparently being tracked. Rios he has now some recognition that he has met Soji or Dodge before, or another version of this android on some other ship, and his former captain did something and sacrificed and killed himself. I'm not sure the whole story there. Maybe you can refresh my memory. And he's in a bit of a depressive state. Raffi's playing mommy, a mother figure to everyone on board. We got Picard dealing with the Admiral, saying there is an issue now. That Admiral who told him about the fucking hubris, and she also tells him now to shut the fuck up. Again. So.
She's one foul-mouthed Admiral, man.
Oh yes. Apparently they're going to go to Deep Space 12 and hand off Agnes there, and the Admiral said they're going to send reinforcements to help Picard. I'm not sure.
Yep.
I think that's what's happening. So they're on their way to Deep Space 12. But then later they figure out a way to access the Borg hyper, or whatever it is, that wormhole tech, or whatever it is.
Yeah, the transwarp
conduit, that's right. So, and then they're gonna go to where Soji is, cause Soji's now on board, so Soji can...
Yeah, to go to her home
world. So I think they're gonna do that. They're not gonna go to Deep Space 12. And then what's happening also on the Borg cube is because Elnor activated that Phineas Ranger stuff, active beacon. Then 7 of 9 comes in and starts kicking ass. And Rizzo pretty much destroys a whole bunch of Borg as 7 of 9 links in again. And I want to talk about that scene. But she was able to get Elnor off the ship. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if they left the ship.
No, they didn't leave yet. So
I
don't think so.
But Rizzo is left.
Yes.
She has escaped, and all the bad Romulans have gone with her. So essentially, those are your two storylines. So what'd you think of this episode, and what'd you like to talk about, Geoff?
Yeah, I mean, overall, actually, I thought the episode was fine. There was lots more talking just on the La Sirena, our ship with Picard. So I like that. I like that it kind of focused on our core characters. So that was fine. I felt that Patrick Stewart came into some more command type situations. So he sounded kind of more like old classic Picard.
Especially when he was dealing with Agnes.
Yeah, that's right. So that was really good. I got a chuckle with Raffi dealing with all of the holograms on there and Picard's office, the holo office there. I thought I don't know if it was necessary, but I got a chuckle out of it. It was interesting to see that we got a bit of background as to why they all look like him and what the consequences of that were. So it was like that, the ship, when he got it, they did the scan so that the automatic default of that program was just to map the captain or whoever had the ship onto those holograms. So they were all kind of pieces of him. They said, he said he didn't really care or something like that, but
to change it.
Clearly, but clearly he did, because he made little modifications to them. So that's a little bit of insight into Rios's character. I don't know what it means at this point, but I kind of like those holograms. They don't seem to serve much of a purpose beyond comic relief, but I'm all right with that. And yeah, some of the Borg stuff, again, it was great to see 7 of 9 again, but I'm a little, so she jacked into the collective or kind of created a mini collective to try to oust the Romulans from that cube and to protect themselves. But that plan didn't really go the way she expected, did it? So a lot of Borg are eating vacuum right now.
Oh yeah.
Thanks to that decision.
Yeah.
There's a lot of drones left. Like, I didn't realize that there were so many drones still left on board the ship.
And I'm okay with that, because in the early episodes, they say if you go into these sections, you got to be careful, right? You don't want to reactivate, the Borg again, right? So I'm okay with that. The only, I liked some of the Borg stuff with 7 of 9. I just felt it was a bit, I liked her reluctance to jack in. I felt that the consequences of her doing that were almost nothing. And I wish I wish there was a bit more there. And I also think I wish there was a bit more of a, and I don't know how you can do it. Maybe, budget wise, they aren't able to do this in time wise, but I would have really liked a bit more of a horror element back to the Borg drones being activated. you know?
Yeah, something sort of first contacty where they did.
Yeah,
Where things are really unsettling. Yeah, totally.
You do see some of the guys come and they just kind of tackle a couple of people and that's it. And it's just kind of, the tension's not racked up at all. And
yeah, I completely agree. And it would have been neat because the script would have been flipped because we were sort of cheering for the Borg at that part, right?
I thought
we
that
want them
funny.
to fuck up the Romulans. Yeah, that would have been really neat.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, and then 7 of 9 then may have to struggle with being part of the collective again. Because she a part of her is missing that, right?
That's right.
In a sense.
Yeah.
So, and then she was just able to, okay, I'm disconnected now. Everything's all good. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
It's kind of like, okay, that's
exactly.
Why?
Yeah, there were no consequences, and it's almost like they knew that they weren't going to do that. So in order to pull that off, because before she jacks in, she's like, well, they won't want to leave the collective, and I may not want to give it up. And then it's like, but you did, and it seemed fine. So who gives a shit,
Yep.
Yeah, like it didn't have any consequences because it can't, because it's not what the show's about. So then it's like, well, why did you do that? Unless it plays into, because they're still there on the cube. So, is that going to play into the next 2 episodes? I hope they don't just try to sweep it under the rug. Presumably Jerry Ryan will be in the next episode, right? Because Eleanor's still on the cube. So
I hope so. Maybe they'll take the Borg cube and go help Picard.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That could be interesting. We'll see what happens there. But I just want to go back and just say this could have been the opportunity with Hugh.
Yeah.
And
I completely agree.
And he jacks in.
Oh.
And even though 7 of 9 comes, but then maybe she has to kill him because he can't give up that control.
Ooh, that's dirty, Harry. I like it.
That would have been my instinct, man.
Yeah. I don't like to rewrite the shows on the show here, but I like that rewrite. That's good.
Yeah. That would have been more fitting for Hugh because then he still has that power to realize, okay, now I can't let this go, so you have to do something.
Or even you could have done it the opposite way: is 7 comes in and she doesn't want to unhook, so Hugh kills her.
Yeah, I think that would have caused a bit more of an uproar, but I would be okay with that if 7 was part of the show from almost every episode. But if you're just having her come in for like 2 seconds, then you can't do that, right?
I guess you're right.
Like 7.
Yeah, you can't do that to 7 of 9, I guess. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So, but I think that would have given Hugh a bit more meaning.
I agree, and that would have really, that would have ramped things up a lot. That would have been really cool.
Okay, so that's, I still don't know what Eleanor did this episode, but that's okay.
Guys up, I think. Did he not in this episode?
I think he got a couple of guys. I do like the one line he gives 7, so once she was jacked into the collective, are you going to assimilate me now?
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool.
And he just looks at her calmly. He's not really worried. He's just like, kind of like, as you said, childlike. Am I going to get assimilated now? It's like, it's great.
It should have been like, if you don't shut up, sit in that corner. It's like, shut up, Elmore.
Yeah. So I want to chime in on what's happening on the La Sirena there. I'm not a fan, really, of what's happening here. I think I like Picard confronting Agnes, but I feel, and then apparently saying he's going to inform the authorities at Deep Space 12 and she'll have to turn herself in and answer for those crimes of killing Maddox. But I feel that was dropped and everything's kind of forgiven at that point because she walks out and as part of the crew, I can sit down at the table. Oh guys, I'm just letting you know I'm going to turn myself in.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to sit here and join you guys. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can I have some more
cake?
Can I have some more cake and wrap, It's okay, cause, I mean, I'm not a fan.
They know she's harmless, right? So I guess it's, I don't know.
Again, we're talking about tension and consequences, but anyways, out of place character. I don't think she's written well, and that's part of the problem, so.
No, she's not really. Yeah, they're trying to play to that actor's, like they're trying, I understand what they're trying to do. Like they're trying to play to how Alison Pill is, like that's sort of her style. We see her other characters in other shows. She's sort of that fish out of water, sort of nervous type, socially awkward type. So they're playing into that and they're trying to play against that as well by having her be she wasn't deliberately nefarious. She was sort of programmed by that mind meld to kill Maddox, or she was shown something so horrible. So they played against her type to make that shocking. It's just, it didn't really hit, didn't really land, So I get what they were trying to do, but it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't really didn't hit. She's still going to have to answer for that. In TV world and Star Trek logic, she's going to answer for that in some way or another. So she's either going to die or she will go to whatever Starfleet resort that they use for prison in the 25th century. You know, because they're an advanced society, right? You know, it's not like she's going to the box, right?
Nope.
Not going to Guantanamo Bay.
No, she needs to go in that box that Cisco was thrown in.
Yeah.
In the heat. That was great. Now let's talk about, I guess I can talk about Rios. I mean, I think it's interesting that the holograms present a different facet to his psyche. I like that. I'm not a fan of just the comedy relief, I guess, scenes with Raffi and they're all in the room and it's very stereotypical as well. You know, he's Hispanic and I don't know. It just doesn't seem fitting. I'm not interested in these scenes. I really don't know what it's going to provide.
Well, hold on. What's the Hispanic stereotype? Because they're all like they have like Irish and Scottish accents and shit.
And this I don't even understand either.
Well, I don't know. They're just doing that because it's goofy, I guess.
So, anyways, either way, I'm not crazy on these scenes.
Maybe he was auditioning and they're like, "Hey, man, you were fine, but like, what can we do?" He's like, "Well, okay, here's my Irish accent," and they're like, "Hired."
Yeah, hire that man. It's like It's like George Costanza.
Yeah,
it's like I'll tell you off. Hire that man. It's great. He went into that audition. And he did the opposite of everything he was good at.
For sure, he stole the raisins.
Oh yeah, he stole the raisins.
100%.
100%. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did enjoy somewhat of the scenes between Raffi and Rios in his room when it was just one-on-one. But now, can you tell me about this plot point? If you can explain it to me a little bit more on Rios having some confrontation with another Soji.
So we'll talk about convenience currency, but yes, here's what happened. So he was on his last Starfleet assignment. He was first officer. I don't remember his captain's name, but they were basically on what sounded like a first contact mission. So they encountered this shuttle and they beamed the two occupants of the shuttle aboard, one of whom was a Soji, a copy, one of that same model and somebody else. And then the order came from Starfleet, from Commodore O directly, I believe, that the captain was to terminate both of those life forms. And he refused because he's a Starfleet officer, you don't murder people. But if he didn't agree, then they were going to destroy the entire ship because somehow Starfleet can do that remotely. Okay. I guess they have kill switches for all their starships. I don't know, but that was the threat. So because he had to save his whole ship, he did kill them. And then, and so what happened was Rios pressed him on it. Because I think he would have tried to cover it up or whatever. He's like, okay, what happened? Why'd you do this? And the more he pressed, then the more distraught the captain became. So then the captain committed suicide. Rios somehow understood what had happened. Like he knew what had happened and then did cover up the murders, and basically had to testify or show that the captain seemingly killed himself for no reason. And that was it for him and Starfleet. So that's what the plot point was. So very, very coincidental. So when he saw Soji beam aboard with Picard, that brought, I think he already kind of knew they were probably synthetics back in the day when it happened, but this obviously solidified. So that brought back all of those memories, which is why he kind of freaked out during this episode. Extraordinarily, highly convenient. Big coincidence that this is the same person who just happens to be the one that they hire to take them on this mission. That's very sloppy storytelling. Very sloppy storytelling.
It's sloppy. It's extremely bad.
You just can't do that. You can't have, the only time you can use a coincidence in a story is to start the story. You can start a story with a coincidence because that can set off a chain of events. But you can't conclude a story with a coincidence and you can't twist that story on a coincidence. It's not fair to us because that's something that shouldn't have happened.
I agree, 100%. I will say this though, I did enjoy the banter between Raffi and Rios. I felt, again, we're talking about character moments, allowing a scene to breathe, getting to know the character of Rios a little bit more, what makes him tick, what was his tragic background there. I'm glad we got to know more of that. I thought those scenes were great. Raffi's, again, playing mother hen to everyone on the ship, and I'm fine with that. I think Raffi's a good kind of gel to everybody there. she needs that because, she can't play mother hen to her own son, so she's kind of now grasping and having need to do that with everyone else, and that makes sense from a character perspective. So I'm enjoying that relationship, but the convenience is bad. The writing choices here are bad.
Completely agree. Yeah, she was fun in this episode. Yeah, I actually like what they've been able to do with her over the course of 8 episodes. Yeah, I thought it was good. This was good for her, but they are sacrificing logic for the sake of good character moments. And I don't think, that's not necessary. You can have good logic and good character moments. They're not mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm. What'd you think of the scenes with Agnes kind of fawning over all of Soji's capabilities? I mean, I'm finding, not good. Like she was, oh, you could do this. Oh, you got a birthmark. Oh, you eat. Oh, you drink when you're thirsty. I mean, I don't know, man. That's a stretch, right?
I don't know. I didn't mind that. I don't know that she played it that well, but it reminded me of the TNG episode. I don't remember what it was called. It was a 2-parter, but Dr. Bashir was on the Enterprise and he had that weird piece of tech. It was the first time Data dreamed. Mm-hmm. And Bashir was he kept asking Data's questions like, does your hair grow and all this stuff? And, and he marveled at the fact that he would breathe and things like that. And Data said, people ask me about how many computations per minute I can do or how strong I am. And nobody's ever asked me, if I eat or, if I brew whatever. And then Bashir was like, well, that's kind of the genius of this. Like, who would make an android whose hair could grow? That's what's interesting about it, right? So I remembered that it was calling back to that for me. So I got it. That it is kind of those things that make these androids so remarkable as those things to make them seem so human, right? So that she marveled at it made sense. And because she worked in AI and all of that synthetic life, this is sort of the pinnacle of that. But, I kind of feel a different way about that scene. I thought that was good. But that made sense.
It makes sense. I'm just not responding well to Agnes's character. Maybe that's my issue here, but fair enough. So I guess the show ends because after Soji kind of settles down and understands that she has to get to her home world, like who she is. She's an android. She has to get to the homeworld. She opens up that conduit and then plots course. And then that conduit opens up. They enter and Narek has a cloaking device and follows in right after. So, and I think the episode ends there. Am I correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. And there's nothing else with Seven and Elnor.
No.
Okay.
No, that was the end of the episode. Yeah.
That was the episode. Yeah. So that's it. Any other thoughts or what'd you think of this episode as well?
No, I kind of liked the episode overall. It was a step back from the previous week. Understandably, there was no way they were going to top Riker and Troy. So yeah, it's almost over now. We got two episodes left. I don't know. I guess I've got lots. The episode I enjoyed it. It wasn't great, but I did enjoy it. And, I guess I have thoughts that are starting to formulate on the series as a whole, but we'll leave that maybe to the, when we do our season wrap up. So what about you?
Yeah, step back for me. I was a bit let down, kind of quite a bit in this episode. Again, we started off with what really is the MacGuffin, and that was a turn off. That's it. That's what we're doing. Okay. That kind of put a damper on things right off the bat, and that was the first scene of the episode. Mm-hmm. And then we have, the Agnes. There's no real fallout for her killing Maddox or anything like that. It's just, okay, back to, have a seat. Have some cake.
Have some cake.
And, I was really hoping more from Seven being part of the collective again. The stakes were just not there. So I was really let down. This episode was a real downer for me. I felt there were a lot of missed opportunities and it's unfortunate. So I was not a fan of the episode. There was a lot of potential, but not a fan. But I want to ask you now one thing. So I do remember what we talked about earlier on and I want to bring it up here. I feel Picard's kind of
not the star.
He's not the star of his own show. Yeah. And I don't know if you agree because he didn't want to be part of that ensemble with his old crew and everyone we want to see him interact with. So now he's interacting with this new crew, but he's hardly having a lot of deep, meaningful things to do with anybody here except for Soji. Yeah. That's okay. But then this crew, because that's the story they're taking, that's his main drive is Soji. So I'm okay with it.
Right.
But with respect to the rest of the crew, I don't feel he has a lot there. There's a lot of implied stuff that's between him and Raffi. Backstory, that's fine. But outside of that, he's not really having anything to do with anyone else. It all seems forced. and manufactured, and there's nothing there to it. So
they're just the help.
Yeah, they're just the help. And
they're the hired hands. That's it.
That's
and nothing more than his Romulan housekeepers.
That's right. But because of that, these people then just like we talked about with, Star Wars and the legacy characters, they're not meant to do the heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. So there's even another kind of, I don't know about ageist joke, but if you could label it as an ageist joke where Picard's getting excited. Okay, let's go to the home world. He sits in the captain's chair.
Yeah.
Loads up the screen. I don't know how to work this. and then you see him scuttle off to the back.
Yeah.
Did you watch Picard? He kind of scuttles like an old man.
Yeah. Totally.
Back to the back there and sits down, and I just feel this show is weird in how it's treating Picard. Yeah. And I don't know. This is rubbing me the wrong way. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah. Get what you're saying. Like he's almost like it's his show, like because he's obviously the driving force behind all of the events, but it's almost like we're watching that episode of TNG, Lower Decks, where it was all of the, all of the schlubs.
That's a great comparison. Right? Great comparison, yeah.
And he's still obviously Picard, but it's just like, well, he's the captain. Like he's doing his own thing, right? And we're just here peeling potatoes down underneath and stuff. So it is weird. It's like, it's strange. It's very strange. And I don't know I can't really put my finger on it if it's, what it is, if it's just a matter of screen time or what, and he's obviously not a young guy. So it's not like he can be, their shooting schedule constraint, like they have all of the practical constraints that unfortunately make their way into the show that we'd rather not have to see, Yeah. So it is weird. Yeah. I kind of do agree with you. There's a few episodes where I'm like, well, what's Picard doing today? Why is he, if it's called its name's in the title, guys, like.
Well, exactly. The other thing here is there's not even scenes of him really engaging these people. Outside of his first encounter with every character, he doesn't have any meaningful scenes with anyone outside of Soji.
That's true. And like I said, I said it as a joke, but they're the help. Mm-hmm. They're just his hired band of rogues, and that's he did have. When did he have? He had a little bit of interaction with. He had a good couple moments with Rios. That was this episode, wasn't it?
He didn't interact with Rios. He didn't interact with Rios much this episode. That was when he first boarded the ship and he had that. Oh yeah, you're Starfleet.
I thought he had another one. Yeah, maybe
I'm not sure
right,
if he had another one with Rios.
You're right. He isn't really building much camaraderie with them.
No,
and I think that it's not so much that that's by design, but that's almost an accident of design. It's glaring because of its absence, because we kind of expect that out of this character because of our history with him, right? We expect him to have that camaraderie with his crew, but he's not going to have it because of the nature of the show. But I just think that they didn't even really realize that was going to be a problem when they built the show. And then as the show comes together and we're watching it, that's a glaring absence.
That's right. And then we're eating up. And then the unfortunate reality here, the consequence also is because now you have to service these characters and they are having scenes like we're talking about this hologram scenes and stuff like that. Instead of it being a slow build over multiple seasons, they're having a 15-minute scene in this episode about Raffi interacting with all the holograms meant for comic relief. Yeah, you're getting an insight to Rios, but Picard's not really there interacting. It just feels like there's a massive disconnect. And all these characters, in a show like this, even if Picard's not an admiral anymore or a captain anymore, everyone should be learning something from him. He's kind of their guiding light to everything. He's their teacher. He's gonna make everyone better, and that's who Picard is and should be. Everybody should be saying, the result of this, whether Picard lives or dies or whatever happens, is everyone would have learnt something and you would see it. The audience would feel it. This character got this from this character. This character got this from Picard. This and so on and so on and so on. The ripple effect. And that he's like the fatherly figure. He's the wise old man here. And that's not happening. Except for Soji. And I think they're going to continue to build on that, which is great. But these other characters will learn nothing from him. Except that, he didn't give up the old fight. Yeah, he stuck to his britches. Go, Picard, go, or whatever, right? So
I guess we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah,
but you're right. You're not incorrect at all. There's definitely some There's some shortcomings, and it's like, again, how I feel like it's come together. I feel like these are things that they didn't even think of, didn't even occur to them. And I could understand why. But now it's laid bare on screen. Like, now what? Like we're in a tough spot now. The show's in a tough spot now because there's all these things that it needs to do, and there's just no way for it to do it. There's not enough time.
I agree.
So what do you sacrifice,
Well, you have to sacrifice these character relationships. So that's a sacrifice. So I have one last question for you, Geoff.
All right.
We got 2 episodes left in this season. I don't know any spoilers. I know nothing.
Right.
Trying to avoid as much as I can. Is this story with the synths going to wrap up by episode 10? Or is it going to carry forward? Directly, there might be some indirect carryover into season 2, but I'm assuming they didn't, you said that they had a 3-season plan earlier. Are they?
Well, no, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just wondering if you think that if this is going to end on a cliffhanger or it's going to be a continued storyline, or is it going to wrap up somewhat in a nice little package by the end of episode 10?
I think it's going to wrap up. I think when they pitched the show, my understanding was when they pitched the show, it was, we've got a contained story. We're going to tell in one season. If we get renewed, like we have ideas for a 2 and a 3, but the idea was to do this in one. Now, it's possible that they could have changed those plans, but my feeling is, here's how I think it'll kind of play out, kind of like how Discovery seasons 1 and 2 played out. They did wrap up the story of that season and then teased the next thing. So that's what my gut's telling me.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to wrap up. There's a lot to do.
Yeah, there's a lot though.
Here, so
only thing that gives me pause there. I don't know if you heard it. I don't know if you listened to this interview, but I listened to an interview with Jonathan Frakes really recently, and he was talking about, primarily he was talking about his 2 episodes that he did. But one of the things he said was that when they shot episodes 1 and 2, like he wasn't obviously a part of that, but he was originally, because he directed episodes 4 and 5, I believe, of this season. And he was originally brought in to direct episodes 3 and 4. But what had happened was when they made 1 and 2, they had so much that they blew out episodes 1 and 2 into 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
So when I heard him say that, I was like, okay, well, if they were able to do that, then maybe they will push out this story into a cliffhanger to be resolved next season. That's the only thing that gives me pause on my original answer. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe that might be better, but maybe not. We'll have to see what happens here once they reach the synth home world. So you just think this synth place is just a bunch of androids tra-la-lying in the grassy fields and hills?
I hope there's something more going on here, dude, because if that's all it is, like, fine, I guess, but I guess I don't really, they need to I don't want them to give me just, a twist for the sake of doing a twist. But what I want to see is the last 2 episodes, I want to see them do something or give me something that is unexpected and surprising and makes me go, okay, I get it. That's why this show is here.
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
That's a high hope.
Yes, I think it's a high hope from what we've seen so far.
But I hope, I think I brought this up a few episodes ago, with HBO's, Watchmen, limited series that they did. The first few episodes of that, I was like, okay, I like it, but what's the point? And then when they landed the last 3 episodes, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And then I could see that they had been weaving this tapestry from episode 1. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't tell yet because it was so big and the threads hadn't come together yet. And it really hit that. They nailed it. I don't think that's what's happening here, but I hope that something like that is happening here.
Yes, I hope so too. I would really hate that the return of Picard has been, kind of a slog. It's kind of not I wouldn't say it's been a slog to get through. It's kind of been 50 slog, 50 okay. I'm kind of intrigued, but it better have a nice wrap up here.
I'm not bored watching it. I'm entertained watching it. And I like watching Patrick Stewart. It's Star Trek. All of that, I look forward every week to watching it. So all of that's still there. And I don't sit there at the end of the episode going, oh, I like it. It's just want it to be more they're playing on my nostalgia by bringing this character back in the first place. They need to pay that off for guys like us that grew up. We were kids when this started. It's part of our DNA, it's formative. They need to pay that off for us if they're going to do it, or they should have just left it alone, you know? So I really hope, and I think they want to, because like the people who are making the show are people who grew up with Trek as well and loved it as kids or teenagers and whatever. So, you know, I know they want to do. I just hope that they can.
I hope so too. And for Trek's sake, I really hope it finishes off with a bang, because I think we could talk about it another time, but I'm not sure on what state Trek is in right now, and I don't have the warm and fuzzies about it. But we could talk about that if we don't feel this series wraps up.
Yeah, we can. There's lots to unpack there.
All right, man. I think that does it for today. Finished episode 7 and 8, so look forward to this week. We can try and hit up episode 9.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Close out with a bang.
All right, take it easy, buddy.
All right, man.